I started building this castle December the 1st, 2018, over 5 years ago now. The first step was digging out the footings by spade, and then collecting the closest stone I could find and laying down the best that I could. When I first started, I thought it was going well until after about 6 weeks, 2 gentlemen turned up, and they was like, "Oh mate, you're going to have to take that down." They explained this from the Dry Stone Association of Wales, and they were both dry stone instructors, and if I took down what I've started, they would come back and show me how to do things properly. I guess from there I was able to build more efficiently and put the footings in, build up the stone wall, and added a central fireplace, added the roof on. Before long we had this cabin. The cabin had like a grass roof, so it just blended naturally into the landscape. What was the hardest part? Most time-consuming part was collecting stone. It probably takes up about 80% of the time altogether, to be honest, over the years. Just being through all weathers, all conditions, just going through weeks and weeks at a time, just doing nothing but collecting stone. When I first started collecting the stone, I was just skimming across the surface. Just keep my eye out collecting the best bits that I could find, but as the years went on, the stone became more and more difficult to find, to the point we had to start digging. Digging for stone was like playing battleships, I guess. It was, you could dig one place and find nothing, dig somewhere else, find one or two, dig the next place, you'd have enough stone to collect for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time. So yeah, it's definitely, collecting stone has been the most time consuming, but in terms of the most physically challenging, it's been the trees, the logs. Some of the logs have been 18, 19, 20 foot, and some of them have had to be particularly thick. And with a bag, you kind of carrying the stone, I should say, it's in a bag, so the weight is kind of balanced and close to your body. But with a log, it's all on this one shoulder, and if you bump a tree, it just goes all over the place. In the very first few months, I nearly had an accident just on the cliff down by there. I was coming across by myself, just skirting across the top of the cliff, and I lost my footing, had a big log on my shoulder. I managed to push it off me and get a bit of distance, but it was on a big slope right at the top of the cliff. So this log now immediately came tumbling towards me. I managed to jump backwards a little bit, right on the edge of the cliff, but at the same time grabbing onto this tree, and the log came down then and hit the tree, and thankfully it didn't fall down the cliff. I still managed to keep it. But that was a pretty close call that day, to be honest. Why did the little cabin turn into a castle? I guess sometimes things happen outside of our control. And on this one particular occasion, I couldn't make sense of what happened, just kept thinking about it over and over again. And I had the choice just to stay in that place or to come up here and start collecting stone and to do something. Collecting stone became a daily task, natural routine. I just wake up in the morning, first thing I'd have to do was just get up here as soon as I could, get the bag on and just collect more and more stone. I think just with that level of dedication and commitment, that first floor of the castle came up really quick, and the momentum carried through onto the second floor. We started building the second floor at the start of the summer, and it went all the way through, and at this point starting to challenge myself and do a lot more corners. So with the second floor I put in 4 doorways and 3 windows, trying to allow in as much natural light as possible, and I started getting more and more help from the local community. So when it came to putting the roof on, progress was a lot easier. I think it's around this point as well we started doing yoga and meditation classes up here free of charge for the local community. And it was from that then that somebody volunteered or donated a few metal benches. So they put my name in there and the Welsh dragon and all the Welsh feathers inside, my military number, and it was incredible. The bench itself, even though it was made by his own family in their own workshop, it was a 13-year-old boy that did a lot of the work for it himself. So it was amazing quality of somebody at that age. I was incredibly grateful for it. So with having the bench, we needed an appropriate place to put it. So I started building the third floor up. I put the foundations in place already as we'd done the second floor. And as we was building that, winter started to kick in. And with the cold weather and with the snow, collecting logs was a lot more difficult. And the rocks, we'd find a lot of the ground would be completely frozen. And what would normally take a couple of days could take a week or two. But all the same, we persevered through and still made the most of every day that we could. And yeah, but then we got to this floor, the fourth floor. I would say technically the fourth floor was the most challenging. Reason being, there's two fireplaces in here, one being the pizza oven and the other one's log burner. So that then the chimneys have to go all the way through the walls. And also working at the height that it's at. It meant taking the stones up quite a long way, which was, yeah, it was difficult at times, really difficult. What's been my favourite day here? Definitely the biggest day here has been when Menethys Line Male Voice Choir came up. About 400-500 people came up that day, and the Male Voice Choir came up in all their suits, and they did 10 songs. Doing the one-to-ones has been highly rewarding as well. I think the one-to-ones work particularly well here because people will be telling me their life stories or what they've been going through or their thoughts. And I'm not a counsellor in any way at all, so I can't really give advice, only challenge certain perspectives. But what I'd find is when people are talking, quite often you get a certain point where their body language would change, their voice would start to tremble, their hands could shake. And at this point then, we'd go down to the quarry and collect some stone or break some stone up with a hammer, take the axe out somewhere. And what that would do then is almost create distraction in some way. In one aspect, it's physically challenging. Another way, it's creative. And I guess in acquiring the raw materials, it was always an adventure in some way. So doing this gave the opportunity to regulate the emotions, to find a more balanced place before continuing the conversation. And I think building all these different things, that's what it's been for myself as well, is a very big distraction. Rather than getting carried away with my own thoughts, things that can't be solved, I'd rather go out and do something that engages thought processes, that brings me into the moment, and creates goals and ambitions. I guess what you could say is good to find a job to do poorly. Now that doesn't mean to do the job itself poorly. What that means is to find something that no matter how bad you're feeling, no matter how bad a day you're having, you're so passionate about what your ambition is, what your goals are, that it overrides what's holding you back. So finding something to do on your poorest of days is something I've tried to advise or install in people that have come up. Everybody has their own different interests. For me, it's been building stuff and doing the fitness. For other people, it could be music. They could be blessed with their own children. Education, work. There's so many different things that people can commit to and dedicate themselves to and strive to better themselves to every day. And I think having such goals massively benefits people's mental health. Another good day for me was when a father came up with his two children, and the two kids had like wizard robes on, the big wizard hats and a wand, dressed like Harry Potter. And they said they'd visited 78 castles around Wales, and this was the 79th. So I gave the kids the hammer, and they started breaking up the stone, and they started putting some stones in the place, and their father was taking lots of photographs of them, and you could see they just made a very special memory for them. And I think over the years lots of families come up and made lots of memories here. Bad times, what's been the worst time here? I think the most damaging thing that's happened here was one night I was filming, and when I was filming I was putting all different fires in all the different windows and in the doorways, and had fires on the roofs as well. And I put out all the fires and just left the one on top of the roof going. And I trusted the fire was safe. But no, that night the fire kept going after I'd gone to sleep. I woke up to a lot of noise, and yeah, a lot of the roof had been damaged. So how did all this start? Many years ago I was living homeless on the side of a mountain. I built a little shelter, and even though there were lots of problems and challenges with being homeless, I kind of made the best of a bad situation. I built this shelter on top of a tree line, and it was off any beaten path, nobody could ever find it. When I first started building the first shelter, I was in a really bad place at the time, and in building the shelter, again, it kind of gave me hope, aspiration, and when I ended up living in there, it gave me shelter from all the elements. Every morning I'd wake up, there'd be these 5 tiny little birds on the bit of wood to hang my clothes up to dry, like my sleeping bag. And yeah, I would just stay as still as I possibly could, just watching the birds, because sometimes it'd be the only interaction I would have for days. But I didn't have no mobile phone there, no watch, no electric obviously, so there were certain periods that I completely lost the concept of time. And being that disconnected from society, being that outside the circle, was almost liberating. It taught me life lessons that I still remember today. So over a space about a year living at the cabin, I started to progress and ended up reconnected with my friends and my family. Ended up even going back to work, and I was just going back to the cabin, and it was fine. I'd adapted to the whole situation, and even though there were challenges with it, there was also lots of benefits to it, particularly for my mental health, because it was so closed off. It was so difficult to find. There was one summer I spent about 3 days completely naked there, just wearing nothing but trainers, knowing that nobody would ever see me. I just wanted a good suntan that year, I guess. However, one day I came back from work, and local authorities had come up and destroyed the whole thing, taken my sleeping bag away, my clothes, my tools, absolutely everything. Even cut down the trees that I've been using as the foundations. From that, a newspaper printed an article about what had happened, and they named me Welsh Rambo, which yeah, it's kind of stuck with over the years. But from that newspaper article, a very, very kind-hearted farming family invited me onto their land and said that they could have a caravan here. They explained that over the years they'd always seen the fires on the side of the mountain and never knew what was going on. They kind of guessed somebody was living there homeless, but obviously didn't know the full story until this time. And the farmers, they were absolutely brilliant, very, very kind and genuinely caring people. The animals here are brilliant as well. When I was in the caravan every morning, I'd open the curtains and there'd be this group of donkeys and a couple of horses just waiting for me to come out. Unfortunately, there was a turkey that wasn't very friendly with me, but I guess to balance that then there was a little dog named Maisie, and she's been my little companion ever since. She's taken her absolutely everywhere with me, down to the beach, cave-in, all across Brecon, camping. And the amount of people she's met over the years, and amount of kids she's made smile, it's been... She's a very, very special dog. from living in the caravan, I had instant access to come over here every day, and I started building the cabin in an attempt to recreate what I'd made previously, to have a peaceful place that I can just go to and just unwind and leave life behind for a little while. It's a place that gives the opportunity to relax and reflect. I guess sometimes also forgive and to forget. Or to give this opportunity to other people that might need it. And the castle started having more and more visitors more regularly. And at this time then, we raised some funding from the local community. Throughout this, the community have been absolutely amazing to myself and supported what I've been trying to create here. And with the funding, I put 50 people through accredited mental health qualifications. It was NHS staff, fitness coaches, charity workers, community project leaders, veterans, bereaved families. There was a real mix of people that really benefited from the course. The course itself was absolutely brilliant. The instructor has been extremely supportive, and it's been an absolute honour to know him and be able to ask him questions whenever I've needed to. There's been very often when people have come up and the things that they've said may be over my head, and it's been able to reach out to this person and kind of get professional help or professional guidance, advice, to make sure that I'm not doing anything wrong, and people do come up to speak with me. I think setting up the courses was challenging for myself because I'd been very, very used to isolation, and to make all them phone calls and conversations, it was something that was out of my depth at the time, but it meant a lot to me that I wasn't just doing something physically, that I was now stepping back into society in some way. For me, the mental health courses, providing them mental health courses, was a big step in the right direction for many reasons. After that is when the cabin started to upgrade into a castle, and over the years we've had way over 10,000 visitors, with many people coming from overseas. And we've also had many walking groups coming up, many walking groups to do with men's mental health, well-being. We've also had quite a few school trips come over. They have been very entertaining, and yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet some of the children. Happening at the moment. Unfortunately, at the start of the year, somebody made a complaint to the council about the castle, so they came up and had a chat, and at first they just wanted the windows changed and block access to the roof of the first floor, which was a fair request. I thought the same thing as they'd thought, so yeah, I took down the outside wall to start with, and simultaneously started building an inside wall, a giant retaining wall. As the retaining wall went up and the outside wall came down to an appropriate height, I then started ripping the logs off, burnt the more rotten ones on the fire, and hopefully going to recycle the other logs in some way in the future. The amount of effort that went into that was phenomenal. Again, it was just hands-on work every single day, every day at it. Unfortunately, again, about 8 months after, the council came back up and said no, they changed their mind and they want the whole castle gone altogether. The staff from the council have been brilliant. They've offered as much support and advice as they can, and genuinely seemed as disappointed that a complaint has been made as anybody. However, that complaint has been made, and they have still requested the castle to come down. They are aware that it's helped many people struggling with their mental health, They know it's had over 10,000 visitors, with many people that come from overseas. It's got that popular now, it's even on Google Maps as a tourist attraction. However, at this time they have still requested the castle come down. From this, I opened a GoFund page, and the local community and beyond were absolutely amazing. The amount of support I had was phenomenal. It just showed how many people have been here and what it means to people, this castle. From that then, I've been able to get advice and understand what's best to do next, and understand what the council have requested, and also speaking with the landowners. What we want to come to at the end is to cut the castle into two. One half would be a bothy, and we would change the use of the land to recreational purposes, where the other half of the stone used would potentially then be a barn to look after rescue animals. Ever since I've been here, the landowners have been brilliant, and they've been amazing to the animals that they look after as well. You could never wish for a better place for animals to be. And in the summertime, or through heavy storms over the years, all the animals have come inside the castle. We appreciate the council saying that we need to separate the two, agricultural from recreational, and we hope with our plans going forward will suffice their needs or requirements. There's an architect involved now who's just waiting now to speak with the council again. They should be coming back up soon for another talk. In the meantime, I'm still going to continue to collapse the castle, regardless of what comes next from this discussion. After speaking with the landowners, what we decided best to do is to use the stone initially to build a small wall at the top of the hill and a stone wall down at the bottom. Unfortunately, over the last 2-3 weeks, people have been coming up on motorbikes, and they've tried tearing down the fence a couple of times. So we're just going to use some of the stone to make sure that doesn't happen again, so the animals can't escape. And it's basically just a way that we can stockpile stone in a safe, neat, tidy way until other plans and funding comes through to progress to the next stage. So how do I feel about it all? It's okay. Sometimes you just have to adapt and overcome, and certain challenges just make us more resilient, stronger. And as I said previously, pretty much every cloud has a silver lining, and I think taking the castle down, rebuilding it to proper regulations, building it with funding, with the council's support, would mean it's got a lot more potential, it's a lot more practical, and could be used by many more people and be a lot more sustainable for the future. So yeah, it's a lot of work to do. It would have been nice to have finished before taking it down, or leave it for a year, but it is what it is. It's not the worst thing that's happened, and it's just given me another goal, to be honest. What do I do in my spare time? I've started doing paddleboarding quite a lot recently. I've been very lucky to get a bluefin paddleboard, so I've been off doing different things with it and challenging myself as much as possible, even doing headstands. I want to do a cartwheel next, but it's not something I've quite got around to. Apart from that, I like hitting golf balls off straight down the mountain. If I'm up the castle, I like doing fitness. There's many exercises I've been doing here at the castle, down on the pull-up bar and the handstand station. I think the fitness thing started when I was a kid. I was going running around the lanes, just doing loops and loops and loops. And by the time I was 16 years old, I could do 250 press-ups and 1,000 sit-ups in one go. And I think that fitness then has stayed with me most of my life. It's continued through in the army. When I was in the army, I worked as a physical training instructor. So I was pretty much taking runs every day, as well as doing tabs and other sorts of fitness sessions, from circuits to battle PT to swimming. But also when I was in the army, the one year I did a boxing tournament. Because I worked in the gym, I knew who was in what weight category, so I found out who was in mine, and two of the boys came in the gym one day, and they was on this weightlifting bench with 8 kilograms doing flies. So I went next to them with 36 kilogram dumbbells and started doing flies as well. And I looked across at them and I said, "Oh, you two, I'm going to kill you." And they didn't believe I was in the weight category. I dropped down to under 60 kilograms. So I weighed myself in front of them, and then them two boys never came back. So I was put straight through to the finals to fight this boy Jonesy. In the first round I knocked Jonesy around the ring quite a few times. There'd been quite a few stoppages. And halfway through the second round I'd knocked him around the ring and he was against the ropes and he just completely dropped his guard. He was absolutely motionless and I was still in flight, and I pulled my right back. I realised what was happening. I looked at the referee, shook my head, put my hands up and walked backwards. At that point, the ref stepped in and stopped the fight. I ended up winning Boxer of the Tournament. I don't think I was the best boxer that day. Probably the strongest pound for pound, but definitely not the most talented boxer in the ring. I think I won the award of the best boxer because in that moment I showed compassion and constraint. But yeah, fitness has been a big thing for me all my life. What else has been happening? Well, a few years ago, 3 film companies asked if they could buy the rights to my life story. Turns out one of the people from one of the companies, his father worked with my dad over in a school in Pontypridd, and we got chatting more and became friends. And from that I agreed to send them my book. After reading my book, they decided to go ahead and put the funding into the project, and over the last 2 years it's been filmed. Around 2 months ago I went to Carmarthen Bay Film Festival and seen it on the big screen for the first time. That was an experience in itself. I had the pleasure of watching a couple of other films there, but also met the filming team again. The filming crew were all characters in their own special ways and had their own specialities, and with that had different experiences and where they travelled around the world with different projects and some of the celebrities they met over the years. It was a real privilege to spend that time with them. Yeah, it's not guaranteed yet, it's not certain, but it's a possibility the film will be on TV for the first time around November the 11th, Remembrance Day. It's very veteran based. Also, another TV production company has been up. They have proposed to film Taking the Castle Down and to film Putting It Back Together Again, and also to come on some of the other projects that I've been doing around the country. Also, a company named Chug have asked me to become their ambassador or the face of their company. It came about as, over the last few years, one of their staff have been coming to the castle with their family a few times a month. From that we got chatting and become good friends, and they asked if they could come to the castle as a work stew. So the whole team came up, and to see how they interacted, it was like seeing one big happy family together, and also to see how well they look after their staff and provide for them was an extraordinary day altogether. And after that they invited me to their workplace, so I met all the team again, and they then proposed if a marketing expert could come up and do a couple of photo shoots at the castle to help promote their product. Chug make these epic Viking beer mugs, and they are absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I've agreed to that, and they came up last Monday for the first time. Yusaf was absolutely brilliant, fair play to him. The weather that day was tipping down, so we thought it was not going to be what we planned, and it wasn't what we planned, but the shoot came out better than what we hoped for in the end. So I'm very much hoping other opportunities will come from that in the future as well. The other great thing with Chug supporting me is they've agreed to make generous donations to a few charities that I've been associated with over the years. So that's been greatly welcomed, and many people are very, very grateful for what they will be receiving already. One of these companies, or one of these foundations I should say, is the Megan May Foundation. Now, I always say pretty much every cloud has a silver lining. The time when a cloud has no silver lining is when a young child passes away. And what the Megan May Foundation do is assist families through difficult periods. They go into hospitals and provide meals, counselling and other forms of support, and often children don't come out of hospital, and in them circumstances they provide overwhelming support. Not only this, they are a great attribute to the community in terms of well-being and being physically active. The team themselves are all volunteers, and with this I'm very, very honoured to say that I'll be doing a fundraising guest speech for them sometime in the very, very near future. It's currently being arranged at the moment. I've also become ambassador for an organisation called Walking the Brecon Beacons. What they predominantly do is take guided hike in areas across Brecon Beacons predominantly, but also in other places around Wales. They are a very, very supportive, very friendly team, and if anybody would like more information on them, please visit their webpage, Walking the Brecon Beacons. Through that, I've also been invited to build some other shelters in other places around Wales. The first one I've built recently, away from the castle, has been a beach shelter. Again, I was just collecting pebbles off the beach and some driftwood. But unfortunately the night didn't go to plan. As soon as the sun went down, all the insects came out and it made sleeping there impossible. After that I built a cabin deep in a forestry along a stream, an old dried up stream. So I was able to collect the stone from close by and use fallen trees for the roofs. It's very, very similar to the first cabin I built when I was homeless, and recently it's been a place that I go to when the castle has been too busy. Somewhere I go to for a bit of quiet time myself now and again. Also, I've built a giant teepee. I hadn't intended to build the teepee. It came about because I'd been camping for a few days, and I very often go long periods of time without checking email or social media. And I came back from a long trip to find my electric company had turned things over, and because they hadn't responded to these emails, my electric was off, and as such a large T-bone steak was defrosted in my freezer. This T-bone steak had sentimental value to me, and built this teepee in the hope that I could cook the steak somewhere scenic. The steak itself was by far the nicest steak I've ever tasted in my entire life. It was a present from a Spanish family that came over a few times last year, and I think the time I spent with them was a time I treasure very much, to learn about their culture and to meet people with such strength and determination was, yeah, definitely a time I treasure. Also, I've been building something under a tree. That's the best way to describe it. There's this giant tree that comes down and the trunk is that kind of size, and at the bottom the roots go out either side. So I've dug out what's underneath and put a stone wall out at the back, And when I dug out, by chance it uncovered this natural, almost like marbled stone flooring. So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to finishing soon. And I've also built something on the side of a cliff that's still in progress. I've also built a shelter next to this lagoon in this incredibly beautiful scenic spot. It's on the opposite side of the path that people take, so it's very, very difficult to actually get to unless somebody's going to get wet. But again, that place is incredibly peaceful and serenic. I do enjoy spending time there very much. So I'm just trying to build things in different places, really. What am I looking forward to most? I think definitely the book is most important to me. It starts off going through my childhood, some of the things I used to do, and some silly stories through my teenage years. But then also goes into living and training in the French Alps. Then the army, how it went in Afghanistan, the things that happened after Afghanistan, and leads up to the castle. But during speaking about the castle, I also speak about some other people's life stories and their experiences, how it's affected them and how they feel certain things could be improved. After listening to a lot of people over the years, there seems to be a frequent trend, especially for men, in what's going wrong. I think the best way I could describe it is, if you forced somebody into a room full of asbestos and then they passed away, have they passed away due to breathing difficulties or due to the environment they've been forced into? And I think after listening to a lot of people, I think I just want to share their experiences of my own and hopefully raise some important questions or raise awareness to certain circumstances or situations people can find themselves in. And with that then I hope certain improvements may be made. So from a certain way, even though the castle has helped a lot of people on an individual level, my biggest hope or aspiration is that the book will make a bigger difference. So once again, thank you so much for all the support, all the donations. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. All the support really has made a huge difference over the years. Not just me personally, but to the progress and hopefully the rebirth of the castle in a way that's sustainable for many decades to come. Thank you so much.